My name is John Fleeger. I have a PhD. I was a distinguished professor for a number of years at LSU. A lot of scientists I know specialize completely on one question, right? And that's important. If you're working with diabetes, you need to know everything you can know about diabetes. But for me, it was always important to do a broad diversity of things because I really enjoy that learning through time.
Dr. Fleeger is an internationally known expert on meiofauna, which are tiny animals that are less than a millimeter in size. They live in the sediments in the ocean bottom and the sediments in the salt marshes off the coast of Louisiana. He has studied everything from just their basic ecology, where they're found, what they eat, what eats them. He's studied their genetics and evolution, and he's even studied how pollution affects the meiofaunal organisms and uses them as a marker for to determine the health of the environment.
So he studies tiny animals that live in the mud, right? But he also recognizes the importance of the work that's being done by people who are working on the plants, the people who are working on the microbes, the people who are working on the sediment. And he's able to synthesize that information and hold it together and see the bigger picture beyond his own work. And I think that makes him a great researcher.
He's, of course, academically rigorous, but also just very patient, and he really cares to make sure that students are learning what they need to develop as scientists. And I've always tried to model what I do based on my interactions with him, just because he was such a patient mentor to students, including myself.
Oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico happened in 2010. It really kind of reinvigorated my career in some sense. I was sort of thinking of how the career might end. I think it's really common for scientists to study an oil spill to find out what effect happened right after the spill. Right? Many animals die, ecosystems are greatly disrupted and so forth. But what we know a lot less about is how things change over time, how they recover. So I think the point that I would make from my own research is that we've really studied a lot of this recovery. I examined with other colleagues some areas in Louisiana salt marshes that were heavily oiled, so heavily oiled that essentially everything perished, the plants, the animals, and everything else. So by studying this, we really get a sense of how quick recovery could take place, how the factors that influence recovery, how those factors work. And that's important because there's a lot of restoration that's going to be taking place in Louisiana. What's natural restoration like? If we restore a salt marsh that's not been oiled, does it seem like the same kind of recovery as a system that's been oiled? And we found that really wasn't quite the same. There was some striking parallels, but there were also some differences. So as things move forward in Louisiana and more restoration is done, I hope the work I've done will give a sort of guiding light to what some of that research might be to make the restoration more effective and to enhance the salt marsh afterwards.